Hi everyone, my name's Paul and welcome to our Glimpses of Jesus series. We're taking a journey through the Old Testament, stopping off at the main events, examining them and thinking about how they point us to Jesus. This is episode number 6 and we're looking at Genesis chapters 9 to 11. A fresh start for God's creation. But will it make a difference? Are you watching this episode on your phone? Are you on a tablet? Are you sitting at your computer? If it begins to glitch, what would you do? How long till you go for a reboot? Because a simple reset fixes most problems, but not all. When we get to Genesis 9, we need to remember the world has had a reboot. A global flood, Noah, his family and the animals saved in the ark. God's pressed the reset button. This is the opportunity for a new start. But will it solve the problem? Will it remove the glitch of sin? No spoilers, but the answer's no. Sin is still present in Noah and his family. Genesis chapter 9 and verses 18 and 19 set the scene. Noah's sons who came out of the ark were Shem, Ham and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. These three were Noah's sons, and from them the whole earth was populated. And then we're immediately into the old story of sin. Noah, as a man of the soil, began by planting a vineyard. He drank some of the wine, became drunk, and uncovered himself inside his tent. In the Bible, drinking alcohol isn't a sin, but getting drunk is. And that's Noah here. He's planted a vineyard, he's harvested the grapes, he's made his wine, and now he's hammered. He's stripped off his clothes and he's lying in full view in his tent. Yet the tale of sin doesn't end there. Here's verse 22. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father naked and told his two brothers outside. Ham is the middle son. He goes into the tent, sees his dad naked, and immediately tells his brothers. Now, what's his heart at this point? Ham gets lambasted for this, so he's not acting out of concern for Noah. No, he's making fun of his dad. Today, he probably would put a picture on Instagram so everyone could laugh. Now, God says that the way children treat their parents matters. In Exodus chapter 20 and verse 12, we read this command. Honor your father and your mother, so that you may have a long life in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. That's not Ham here. Noah sins by getting drunk and makes a fool of himself. Ham sins by not honouring his dad. Has anything changed from Genesis 6 to 9? The landscape has changed. The forces of a global flood would have raised mountains and carved out valleys. The number of people and animals has changed, but not the state of the human heart. I find this striking. It's not as if the reality of judgment isn't a fresh memory. A global flood, a year in a boat. The severity of these events would be etched on their minds. Yet that's not enough to stop us sinning. We need more than a reset. The Bible tells us the only way that sin can be dealt with is through the cross of Jesus. It's the only way we can be forgiven. It's the only way we can have new life. It's the only way we can be really saved. Noah and his family still sin. But what about their descendants? Genesis 11 and verses 1 and 2 shows us the picture doesn't improve. The whole earth had the same language and vocabulary. As people migrated from the east, they found a valley in the land of Shinar and settled there. On the surface, this doesn't seem a problem. People living in communities is not a bad thing, and even building towns and cities is something God encourages at times in the Bible. But this is an act of rebellion. When Noah came off the ark, God gave a specific instruction. Genesis chapter 9 and verse 1 says, God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. They were to fill the earth. That means spread out, not clumped together. Yet here they have a different plan. Look at verses 3 and 4. They said to each other, come, let's make oven-fired bricks. They used brick for stone and asphalt for mortar. And they said, come, let's build ourselves a city, and a tower with its top in the sky. Let's make a name for ourselves. There's nothing wrong with bricks and nothing wrong with building. But what's their motive? Why do they want to build a huge tower? To show everyone, to show everything how amazing they are and how great their name is. This is an act of pride, but it's also more. At the end of verse 4, we see their rebellion. Let's make a name for ourselves, otherwise we will be scattered throughout the earth. What do they want? The exact opposite of what God has commanded. This tower is an act of insurrection. It's proof of what they can do without God. It's proof that they can make their own way and don't need to follow his ways. Think of a toddler who doesn't want to move. He plonks himself down and in defiance resists every attempt to get him to comply. This tower is that act of defiance. What does God do? Verses 5 to 7 tell us, "Then the Lord came down to look over the city and the tower that the humans were building. The Lord said, if they have begun to do this as one people, all having the same language, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let's go down there and confuse their language so that they will not understand one another's speech." He comes, he sees, he acts. There are currently over 7,000 different languages in the world. If we all came from the same parents, Adam and Eve, or we could say Noah and his wife, how come we don't speak the same language? Or at least similar languages? The reason, in pride, we stood together against God. In response, he scattered us so that we would spread across the world. From Genesis 6 to 11, has anything changed? The landscape, yes. The number of people and animals, absolutely, but not the state of the human heart. It's like a broken record that keeps playing the same track again and again. The world is stuck in the same groove. People are stuck in rebellion against God. I find this striking. The current viewpoint is that there's no such thing as bad people, just people affected by bad circumstances. Yet that doesn't fit with what we see in the Bible or what we see in experience. Yes, bad circumstances shape us. They have an effect. They encourage and release sin. But sin is deeper. It's ingrained in us. It's part of who we are as fallen humanity. Think about it. No one has to teach a child to be naughty. No one had to teach me to lie or to try and get my own way. No one had to teach me to be sneaky or to be unkind. These things came naturally. It was getting me to do the right things that took my parents' effort. We need more than a reset to deal with the problem of sin. That's why the Bible points us again and again to the cross of Jesus. It's there that Jesus broke the power of sin. It's there that Jesus destroyed the grip of sin. It's there that Jesus paid the penalty for sin. And if we come to him in faith, we get forgiven and we get changed as the Holy Spirit comes into our lives and starts a process of transformation. A process where we begin to see the grip of sin lessen in our lives. A reset is not enough. Despite the flood, sin is still active in the world and in our hearts. But I want you to notice sin is not the only thing that hasn't changed. God is still working out his plan of salvation. In Genesis chapter 11 and verse 10, we find a list of Shem's descendants. Here's how it ends in verse 26. Terah lived 70 years and fathered Abram, Nahor, and Haran. This is important. Shem to Abram, or Abraham as he'll end up being known, is the next step on the road to Jesus. This is the next step in God's plan to deal with sin. Sin is resolutely hanging around, and God is persistently working out his plan of salvation. Around 1250 years later, and still 750 years before Jesus was born, God made this prophecy through Isaiah. But he was pierced because of our rebellion, crushed because of our iniquities. Punishment for our peace was on him, and we are healed by his wounds. When Jesus came, he would die for sin, pierced for our rebellion. He would be crushed. That's a word that sends shivers down my spine. Crushed for the wrong stuff we did. He was punished so we could have peace. He was wounded so we could be healed. In Genesis 11, God is working out his plan to pay for sin through the death of Jesus on the cross. But Jesus doesn't just pay for sin. He sets us free from sin. In Romans chapter 6 and verse 17 to 18 we read, "But thank God that although you used to be slaves of sin, you obeyed from the heart that pattern of teaching to which you were handed over. And having been set free from sin, you became enslaved to righteousness." These verses aren't the easiest, but notice the words "set free from sin." Sin grips our heart. A reset of creation didn't break that. But in Jesus, that power is broken. In this life, there's still a struggle with sin. It hangs around like a bad smell. But the Bible speaks about an eternity with Jesus where that changes. Revelation chapter 21 and verse 4 describes it for us. He, God, will wipe away every tear from their eyes. Death will be no more. Grief, crying, and pain will be no more, because the previous things have passed away. A place with no pain, a place with no grief, a place with no crying, a place with no death. Why? These are the results of sin. And in eternity with Jesus, they're gone. Why? There's no sin left. It's been defeated. From Genesis 6 to 11, has anything changed? Superficially, yes, but in reality, no. The human heart is still a festering pit of sin. We are still drawn to rebellion against God. A reset is not enough. But a reset is not God's plan to deal with sin. His plan is Jesus and the cross. A plan that brings forgiveness, a plan that brings change, a plan that brings a future where things will be different. How can we deal with sin? Two methods. First, we try to do it ourselves. We make sure we become better people. We try harder when we fail. We discipline ourselves with harsh routines. But all that does is adjust habits. We can't dig deep enough to destroy or remove sin. The only way to deal with sin is to bring it to Jesus. He alone brings forgiveness. He alone breaks the power of sin. He alone can remove its presence.